Hey, good friends. How you holding up today? Picture this. A beat-up diner in Chicago, a cook with a big heart, and a silent kid who hasn't smiled in years. Until one night, a bowl of dough changes everything. But here's the twist. His billionaire dad's watching, and he's not happy. How does a nobody chef flip a rich man's world upside down? Stick around. This story's got grit, heart, and a taste you won't forget. Hit subscribe, drop where you're watching from in the comments, and let's dive in. The kitchen at Maria's kitchen smelled like home. If home was a mix of sizzling bacon, fresh-baked cornbread, and the faint tang of spilled coffee that never quite came out of the old wooden floors. It was a small joint, tucked between a pawn shop and a laundromat on Chicago's South Side, where the L train rattled past every 15 minutes and the wind off Lake Michigan carried a bite year-round. The walls were plastered with faded photos of regulars, truckers with sunburned necks, old ladies with perms, kids with sticky fingers, and the counter was chipped from decades of plates sliding across it. For Emma Thompson, though, this wasn't just some greasy spoon. It was her world, her heartbeat, the one place where the chaos of life made sense. Emma wiped her hands on her apron, a stained thing she'd patched up with duct tape more times than she could count. Her dark blonde hair was yanked back in a messy bun, strands sticking to her sweaty forehead after a 10-hour shift. At 28, she wasn't exactly living the dream, barely scraping by on tips, crashing in a one-bedroom walk-up with a leaky sink. But she had a knack with food that kept folks coming back. Tonight, the place was quieter than usual, just a couple of guys nursing beers in the corner and Maria Lopez, the owner, humming an old salsa tune behind the register. The bell above the door jingled, sharp against the hum of the fryer. Emma glanced up, expecting another late-night regular, but froze mid-chop. A man stepped in, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that screamed money. His jaw was tight, his gray eyes scanning the room like he owned it. Behind him rolled a kid in a wheelchair, maybe 10 years old, with a mop of brown hair and a faded Cubs hoodie that swallowed his skinny frame. His hands rested limp on the armrests, but his eyes, big, dark, and curious, darted straight to the open kitchen where Emma stood, her knife hovering over a pile of onions. "Table for two," the man said, voice clipped and low, like he was used to being obeyed. Maria nodded, grabbing menus, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling of those kids' eyes on her. They weren't just looking, they were studying, following her hands as she diced the onions with quick, practiced flicks. She caught his gaze and flashed a grin, the kind she used on shy customers. "Hey, kiddo, like what you see?" He didn't answer, didn't even blink, just kept staring. The man, his dad, she figured, steered the wheelchair to a booth by the window, muttering something about a quick stop. Emma shrugged it off and went back to her onions, the rhythm of the blade steadying her nerves. But every few seconds she'd catch him watching, quiet, intense, like he was memorizing every move. "Emma, you good back there?" Maria called, her voice cutting through the clatter of pots. She was a short, wiry woman with a laugh that could wake the dead, her black hair streaked with gray from years of running this place. "Yeah, just chopping," Emma shot back, tossing the onions into a skillet. The sizzle filled the air, a sharp hiss that mingled with the buttery scent of cornbread cooling on the rack. She glanced at the kid again. He was still there, head tilted now, like he could smell something nobody else could. "Hey, Maria," she said, lowering her voice. "That kid's weird, right? He doesn't talk, but he's watching me like I'm Gordon Ramsay or something." Maria peeked over the counter, her gold hoop earrings glinting under the fluorescent lights. "That's David Parker's boy. You know, the big shot who owns half the food tech startups in Chicago. Word is the kid's got autism or something. Doesn't say much, if ever. David's a cold fish, though. Barely looks at him." Emma frowned, wiping her hands on a rag. That's messed up. Kid's got a spark, I can tell. She didn't know why it bugged her so much. Maybe because she'd seen that look before, in her little brother Ben when their mom got sick and the world turned upside down. Quiet didn't mean empty. The night dragged on, orders slowing to a trickle. David Parker sat stiff as a board, scrolling his phone, while the kid, Alex, she'd heard Maria call him, stayed glued to her every move. She flipped a burger, tossed some spices into a pot of chili, and caught him sniffing the air, his nose twitching like a bloodhound's. That's when it hit her. He wasn't just watching. He was tasting it in his head, without even taking a bite. "Hey, Alex," she said, leaning over the counter, her voice soft but playful. "You like food, huh? Want to see something cool?" David's head snapped up, eyes narrowing, but she ignored him. Alex's gaze flicked to her, hesitant, then curious. She grabbed a jar of cinnamon and a bottle of vanilla extract from the shelf, holding them up like a game show host. "Pick one. Which smells better?" For a second, nothing. Then, slow as molasses, his hand lifted, shaky, unsure, and pointed at the cinnamon. Emma's grin split wide. "Good choice, buddy. Cinnamon's my jam, too." She unscrewed the lid, wafting it under her nose, then held it out. Alex leaned forward, just a fraction, and inhaled deep. His lips twitched. Barely a smile, but damn if it didn't light up the whole dingy room. David stood, shoving his phone in his pocket. "We're leaving," he said, sharp enough to cut glass. But Emma wasn't done. "Hang on a sec," she called, darting to the prep station. She grabbed a spare apron, too big for a kid, but it'd do, and a bowl of dough she'd been saving for tomorrow's rolls. "Alex, want to try something with me real quick? Promise it'll be fun." David's jaw clenched. "He doesn't do that." "Maybe he does," Emma shot back, meeting his stare. "Just 5 minutes. What's it gonna hurt?" Something flickered in his eyes, doubt maybe, but he didn't stop her. Alex rolled closer, his wheelchair creaking on the uneven floor, and Emma plopped the dough in front of him. "All right, chef. Let's make a roll. You knead it like this. Push, fold, push again. Got it?" His hands hovered, trembling, then pressed into the dough, clumsy at first, but steadying fast. Emma guided him, her flour-dusted fingers brushing his, showing him how to shape it. The kitchen went quiet, just the soft thud of dough and the hum of the fryer. Then it happened. Alex looked up, right at her, and laughed. A small, breathy sound, barely audible over the L train rumbling outside, but it hit Emma like a freight train. Her chest tightened, tears pricking her eyes, and she laughed back, loud and messy. "Holy crap, Alex, you're a natural," she said, ruffling his hair. He ducked his head, but that smile, God, that smile, was still there, small and real. David froze by the booth, his phone slipping from his hand to the table with a soft clunk. His mouth opened, then closed, like he'd forgotten how to breathe. Emma didn't notice him at first. She was too busy high-fiving Alex, flour puffing between their palms. "We're baking this bad boy tomorrow, okay? You're on my team now." Alex nodded, quick and eager, and for a second, the world was just the two of them, dough-sticky and grinning in a beat-up diner kitchen. David cleared his throat, loud enough to snap her out of it. "Time to go," he said. But his voice cracked, softer than before. He wheeled Alex out, the bell jingling behind them, leaving Emma standing there, heart pounding, hands still dusted white. She didn't know it yet, but that laugh, that tiny, perfect sound, was about to turn her whole damn life upside down. "Hey, folks. Ever met someone whose smallest move made you believe in magic? Drop your stories in the comments below. I want to hear 'em. And hit that subscribe button to stick with Emma and Alex on this wild ride. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. The next morning at Maria's kitchen felt heavier than usual, like the air itself had soaked up the grease from last night's fryer and refused to let it go. Emma dragged herself through the back door, her sneakers squeaking on the damp linoleum, a paper cup of gas station coffee clutched in her hand. The high from Alex's laugh still buzzed under her skin, but it was tangled up with a knot of nerves she couldn't shake. She'd replayed that moment 100 times, his little giggle, the way his eyes lit up, the flour dusting his cub's hoodie. It was the kind of thing that made her want to text her brother Ben and yell, "I did it, man!" But now, in the gray light of a Chicago dawn, doubt crept in. What if David Parker didn't see it the way she did? She tied on her apron, the patched-up one that smelled faintly of onions and desperation, and started prepping for the breakfast rush. The kitchen was a mess. Pots stacked in the sink, a bag of potatoes spilling across the counter. But it was her mess, her sanctuary. She grabbed a knife and attacked a pile of bell peppers, the sharp thwack-thwack of the blade cutting through her jumbled thoughts. Maria shuffled in a minute later, her apron already smudged with salsa from some early prep she'd done at home. "You look like hell, chica," Maria said, eyeing Emma over the rim of her coffee mug. "What's eating you? Too much fun with that kid last night?" Emma smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Something like that. Alex, he laughed, Maria. First time I've seen him light up. But his dad, I don't know, he's got this vibe like he thinks I'm trouble." Maria snorted, setting her mug down with a clink. "David Parker? That guy's wound tighter than a tamale in a steamer. Probably doesn't know what to do with a kid who isn't a spreadsheet." She paused, softening a little. "But you got through to Alex. That's something, right?" "Yeah," Emma muttered, slicing a pepper so hard the seeds flew across the cutting board. "Just hope it's enough." The bell jingled out front, sharp and loud, pulling her out of her head. She wiped her hands on a rag and peeked through the kitchen window, expecting a regular like Old Man Pete with his usual order of eggs over easy. But it wasn't Pete. It was David Parker, back again, his suit crisp and his face carved from stone. No Alex this time, just him, striding to the counter like he owned the damn place. Emma's stomach dropped, a cold sweat prickling her neck. "Emma!" Maria hissed, nudging her toward the front. "Go deal with Mr. Fancy Pants. I'll handle the peppers." She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and pushed through the swinging door. The diner was quiet, just the hum of the coffee maker and the faint rumble of traffic outside. David stood there, arms crossed, his gray eyes locking onto her like a hawk spotting prey. Up close, he looked tired, lines etched deeper around his mouth, a shadow under his eyes, but it didn't soften the steel in his voice. "Miss Thompson," he started, low and clipped. "We need to talk." Emma crossed her arms right back, mirroring him. "All right, shoot. What's up?" He didn't blink. "Last night, what you did with Alex. I don't know what game you're playing, but it stops now. He's my son, not some project for you to mess with. I don't want you near him again." Her jaw dropped, heat rushing to her cheeks. "Game? Are you kidding me? I'm not playing anything. I just gave him a bowl of dough and 5 minutes of my time." He laughed, David. "First time you've heard that in how long?" David's face tightened, a muscle ticking in his jaw. "That's not the point. You don't get it. He's fragile. I've spent years with doctors, therapists, people who actually know what they're doing. You're a cook in a diner. Stay away from him." The words hit like a slap, sharp and stinging. Emma's fists clenched, nails digging into her palms. "A cook in a diner who got through to him when your fancy experts didn't. You think I'm after something? Look around. This place is barely holding together. I don't need your money or your kid's spotlight. I just saw a boy who likes food, same as me." Say. For a second, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, maybe, or guilt, but it vanished fast. He stepped closer, towering over her, his voice dropping to a growl. I don't care what you saw. You don't touch him. You don't talk to him. You don't even look at him. Understood? The air between them crackled, thick with tension. Emma held his stare, her heart pounding, but she didn't back down. Yeah, I hear you, she said, voice steady, despite the shake in her hands. But you're wrong about him. And you're wrong about me. David didn't reply, just turned on his heel and stormed out, the bell clanging behind him like a gunshot. Emma stood there, breathing hard, the diner spinning around her. Maria poked her head out, wide-eyed. What the hell was that? Asshole thinks I'm some gold digger, Emma muttered, shoving her hands through her hair. Told me to stay away from Alex. Maria whistled low. Well, damn. You gonna listen? Hell no, Emma said, a spark flaring in her chest. She grabbed a tray of dough from the counter, slamming it down harder than she meant to. That kid needs me, Maria. I'm not giving up on him. The rest of the day blurred by. Orders shouted, plates clattering, the usual chaos of a Chicago lunch rush. But Emma's mind was somewhere else. She kept seeing Alex's face, that tiny smile, the way his hands pressed into the dough like it was the first thing he'd ever really held on to. By closing time, her apron was a mess of ketchup and flour, and her legs ached like she'd run a marathon. But she couldn't sit still. She locked up with Maria, the neon open sign flickering out, and trudged to her beat-up Honda parked out back. That night, sprawled on her lumpy couch with a beer she couldn't afford, Emma stared at the ceiling. Her apartment was a dump, peeling paint, a fridge that buzzed like a dying bug. But it was hers. She grabbed her phone, scrolling aimlessly when a flyer popped up on her screen. Chicago Taste Challenge. A big deal cooking contest downtown, airing live on local TV next month. First prize was 10 grand and a shot at a cookbook deal. Her thumb hovered over it, heart thumping. What if, she muttered, sitting up. What if Alex saw her on TV? What if he showed up? David could shove his rules. She'd find a way back to that kid one way or another. She clicked register before she could talk herself out of it, her pulse racing like she'd just bet her last dime, which honestly, she kinda had. The next few weeks were a grind. Emma burned through her days at Maria's kitchen, slinging burgers and frying eggs, but her nights were all about the contest. She'd stumble home after midnight, her tiny kitchen turning into a war zone, pans everywhere, spices spilling, the air thick with garlic and thyme. She'd film herself on her cracked iPhone, talking to Alex like he was there. Hey, buddy, check this out. Trick to a killer chili is a pinch of cocoa. Don't tell your dad, okay? She'd upload the clips to a private YouTube link and email it to an address she'd swiped from a takeout receipt David left behind. No clue if Alex got them, but it felt like a lifeline. One night, bone-tired and wrist-deep in dough, she caught her reflection in the toaster, bags under her eyes, flour in her hair, and laughed, a raw, shaky sound. You're nuts, Emma, she said to the empty room. But I'm not letting him go. She pictured Alex's smile, that little spark, and it hit her hard. Tears spilling over, hot and fast. She wiped them with her sleeve, smearing flour across her cheek, and kept kneading. This wasn't just about a contest anymore. It was about a kid who'd gotten under her skin, and a promise she hadn't even said out loud. Hey, folks, what would you do if someone told you to walk away from a person you care about? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'm dying to know. And hit that subscribe button to see how Emma fights to get back to Alex. Things are about to heat up. The Chicago Taste Challenge was a circus, a sweaty, chaotic mess of clanging pans and shouting chefs packed into the massive convention center downtown. The air buzzed with heat and noise. Sizzling oil, the sharp tang of garlic, the hum of a crowd that stretched from the stage to the back exits. Emma stood at her station, a rickety metal table under glaring spotlights, her apron tied tight and her hands trembling just enough to piss her off. She'd made it through the prelims, weeks of hustling, scraping by on fumes and cheap coffee, but this was the real deal. Finals, live on WGN, with a shot at 10 grand and a cookbook deal. More than that, it was her chance to reach Alex. Her station was a war zone already. Cutting boards slick with onion juice, a pot of chili simmering on a burner, and a half-finished cornbread batter she'd tweaked a dozen times in her tiny apartment kitchen. The other contestants were pros, sleek, cocky types with shiny knives and sponsors embroidered on their chef coats. Emma, in her patched-up apron and beat-up Chuck Taylors, felt like a kid who'd snuck into the grown-ups' party. She wiped her forehead with her sleeve, the heat making her bun stick to her neck, and muttered, "You got this, Thompson. Don't screw it up." The clock ticked down, 40 minutes left, and the crowd roared as the host, some guy with too much gel in his hair, hyped up the judges. Emma barely heard him. Her eyes darted to the audience, scanning the sea of faces. David Parker was out there somewhere. She'd spotted his charcoal suit earlier, arms crossed, watching her like she was a bomb about to go off. No Alex, though. Her stomach twisted. She'd banked on him sneaking out, showing up with that quiet spark in his eyes. Maybe she'd been wrong. "Focus," she hissed to herself, stirring the chili with a wooden spoon. She'd gone big. Her signature dish, a smoky pork chili with a cocoa twist, paired with jalapeno cornbread. It was bold, maybe too bold, but it was hers. She reached for a jar of smoked paprika, her secret weapon when disaster struck. The jar slipped, her sweaty hands betraying her, and shattered on the floor, red powder exploding like a crime scene. "Shit!" she yelped, loud enough for the mic to catch it. The crowd laughed, a few gasps mixing in, and she felt her face burn hotter than the burner. Panic clawed at her chest. No paprika, no depth. Her chili was toast. She crouched to scoop up what she could, glass crunching under her sneakers, but it was useless. The clock glared down. 35 minutes. She was done. She could feel the judge's eyes, the camera zooming in, David's cold stare from the stands. Her hands shook, and for one awful second, she wanted to bolt, grab her stuff and run back to Maria's kitchen, where nobody cared about smoked paprika or 10 grand. Then the crowd shifted, a ripple moving through the noise. Emma looked up, squinting against the lights, and her breath caught. Alex rolled through the aisle, his wheelchair creaking, his Cubs hoodie smeared with what looked like flour. He'd come, alone, no David trailing him, and he was clutching a little jar in his lap, his dark eyes wide and locked on her. Her heart slammed against her ribs, a grin breaking through the panic. "Alex?" she called, forgetting the mic was live. "What the hell are you doing here, kid?" He didn't answer, just kept rolling, slow and determined, until he hit the edge of the stage. A security guy stepped forward, hand up, but Emma waved him off. "He's with me!" she shouted, darting to the stairs. The crowd buzzed, confused, but she didn't care. Alex stopped in front of her, his hands shaking as he held out the jar. Dried oregano, scratched-up label and all, something he must have nabbed from home. His lips moved. No sound at first. Then a whisper slipped out, barely audible over the chaos. "For you." Emma's throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes. She took the jar, her fingers brushing his, and laughed, a raw, shaky sound that echoed through the speakers. "You're a damn hero, Alex Parker," she said, ruffling his hair. He ducked his head, but that twitch of a smile was back, brighter than ever. The crowd went nuts. Cheers, whistles, a few awes, and Emma hauled him up the ramp to her station, rules be damned. "All right, chef," she said, unscrewing the oregano. "You're in this with me now. Tell me, will this save my chili?" Alex didn't speak, just pointed at the pot, his nose twitching like he could smell the fix already. She dumped in a pinch, then another, trusting that weird magic he had with flavors. The clock screamed 20 minutes, and she kicked into gear, stirring fast, tweaking the cornbread with a last-second jalapeno chop. Alex stayed close, watching, his hands gripping the jar like a lifeline. Up in the stands, David Parker stood, his face a storm of shock and something else. Pride, maybe, or regret. Emma caught his eye for a split second, daring him to stop this, but he didn't move. The cameras swiveled, catching every second, and the host blabbered something about unexpected teamwork. She didn't hear it. All she heard was Alex's breathing, steady beside her, and the sizzle of her chili pulling itself together. Time ran out with a blaring buzzer, and Emma stepped back, hands on her hips, her station a disaster of spilled spices and hope. The judges, a stern woman with glasses, a guy with a mustache, and a chef she'd seen on Food Network, filed over, tasting her dish with poker faces. She held her breath, Alex's wheelchair creaking as he shifted beside her. Mustache guy nodded, scribbling something. Glasses. Lady murmured, "Bold choice with the oregano," and Emma's stomach flipped. Then Food Network chef grinned, a real grin, and said, "Kid's got a nose for this. You two just turned a train wreck into a damn good bowl of chili." The crowd erupted, and Emma's knees nearly buckled. She turned to Alex, high-fiving him so hard flour puffed off his hoodie. "We did it, buddy," she yelled, laughing through the adrenaline. He smiled, full on this time, teeth and all, and it hit her like a punch. This wasn't about the prize anymore. It was about him, right here, shining under those stupid lights. David pushed through the crowd. His suit rumpled now, his eyes locked on Alex. He stopped a few feet away, hands shoved in his pockets, and cleared his throat. I didn't know he could do that," he said, voice rough, almost breaking. Emma met his gaze, steady as hell. "Yeah, well, maybe you should have asked him." The judges called her name, top 3, moving to the final round, and the crowd cheered again, but Emma barely heard it. She knelt beside Alex, squeezing his shoulder. "You saved my ass up there, chef. Proud of you." He didn't say anything, just leaned into her, his head brushing her arm. David watched, silent, his jaw tight with something that wasn't anger anymore. Across the room, Sarah Johnson, a local reporter with a nose for a story, scribbled furiously in her notebook. She'd been sniffing around Maria's kitchen for weeks, and now she had her hook, the diner cook and the billionaire's kid, turning a contest into a damn miracle. David caught her eye, frowning, but she just grinned back. This was going viral, whether he liked it or not. Emma stood, brushing flour off her jeans, her chest still pounding. She'd made it through, barely, but more than that, she'd gotten Alex back, right in front of his dad's face. Whatever came next, she wasn't letting go. Not now. "Hey, folks. When's the last time you saw someone step up and change everything? Tell me your stories in the comments. I'm all ears. And smash that subscribe button to see if David finally gets it. This ride's getting wilder by the minute." The air at Maria's kitchen felt different tonight, lighter somehow, like the grease and coffee fumes had finally given way to something sweeter, warm butter, cinnamon, and the buzz of a packed house. 2 months had passed since the Chicago Taste Challenge, and Emma Thompson had turned the little South Side diner into something more than a greasy spoon. The chipped counter was still there, the old photos still peeling off the walls, but now there were strings of fairy lights looped over the booths, casting a golden glow that made the place look damn near magical. Tables spilled out onto the sidewalk, covered with red and white checkered cloths, and the line of folks waiting for a seat stretched halfway down the block. Emma moved through the chaos, her patched-up apron swapped for a new one. Still stained, though, because old habits die hard. Her hair was a frizzy mess, sticking to her neck from the heat of the kitchen, but her grin was wide and real. Tonight was the grand opening of the new Maria's Kitchen, not just a diner anymore, but a community spot where anyone could grab a free meal, no questions asked. She'd used her contest winnings, third place, $5,000 after taxes, to fix the place up, and David Parker had kicked in the rest. Yeah, David freaking Parker, the guy who'd once told her to stay the hell away from his kid. She caught a glimpse of him now, leaning against the counter in a rolled-up button-down. No suit tonight, just jeans and a tired half-smile. Alex rolled beside him, his wheelchair parked next to a table piled with fresh rolls, his hands dusted with flour from helping Emma prep. The kid had been coming around more, sneaking out at first, then showing up with David's grudging okay. Tonight, though, was different. Tonight was theirs. "Emma, we're out of chili again," Jake Miller hollered from the kitchen, his voice cutting through the clatter of plates. He'd stuck around after the contest, trading his bar gig for a spot on her crew, a wiry guy with a crooked grin and a knack for keeping the fryers humming. "On it!" she yelled back, grabbing a pot from the stove. The chili was a hit, her smoky pork recipe with Alex's oregano twist, a dish that had gone viral after Sarah Johnson's article hit the Tribune. Diner chef and autistic boy spice up Chicago's heart. She ladled it into bowls, passing them to Maria, who darted out to the tables with a tray and a wink. "Place is hopping, chica," Maria said, brushing past. "You sure you didn't bite off more than you can chew?" Emma laughed, wiping her hands on a rag. "Oh, I'm chewing all right. Just hope I don't choke." She glanced at Alex, who was shaping a roll with that quiet focus she'd come to love. "Hey, chef," she called, nudging his shoulder. "How's our bread game tonight?" He didn't look up, just pushed the roll toward her, a perfect little ball, golden brown and steaming. She took it, breaking it open, and the smell hit her, yeasty, warm, with a kick of jalapeno she'd taught him to sneak in. "Damn, Alex, you're killing it," she said, popping a piece in her mouth. He smiled, small, shy, but brighter, every time she saw it. David stepped over, hands shoved in his pockets, his gray eyes softer than she'd ever seen them. "Emma," he started, voice low enough to get lost in the crowd if she wasn't listening. "Can we talk?" She nodded, brushing crumbs off her hands. "Sure. What's up?" They moved to a quieter corner, near the jukebox that still didn't work, but looked good under the lights. He leaned against the wall, rubbing the back of his neck like he wasn't sure where to start. "I owe you an apology," he said finally, meeting her gaze. "A big one. I was an ass. Thought you were some hustler trying to cash in on Alex. I've spent years building walls around him, thinking I was protecting him, but all I did was keep him locked up. You broke through that." Emma crossed her arms, studying him. He looked smaller without the suit, more human. "Yeah, you were a jerk," she said, blunt as ever. "But I get it. You're his dad, you're scared. Doesn't mean you were right." He huffed a laugh, short and rough. "Fair. Look, I saw what you did at that contest. Alex running to you, saving your dish. I haven't seen him move like that, ever. You gave him something I couldn't, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." Her throat tightened, but she kept her cool. "It's not about me, David. It's about him. He's got more in him than you think, than any of us think. Just took a little chili to figure it out." David nodded, slow and deliberate. "That's why I'm here. I'm starting a program, Parker Culinary Kids. Cooking classes for kids like Alex, autism or whatever else. I want you to run it. Full-time, your call on everything, locations, staff, recipes. What do you say?" Emma blinked, the words hitting her like a brick. "You're serious?" Me running a whole damn program? I'm a diner cook, David. I burn toast half the time. He grinned, a real one, crinkling his eyes. You're more than that, and you know it. Alex trusts you. I trust you. Say yes, and we'll make it work. She chewed her lip, glancing at Alex, who was now passing rolls to a couple of kids at the next table. She thought of her mom, slaving away at a factory job to feed her and Ben, never getting a break. She thought of every kid like Alex, stuck in their own heads, waiting for someone to see them. All right, she said, exhaling hard. I'm in. For him. The night rolled on, a blur of food and laughter. Old Man Pete showed up with his buddies, swapping stories over bowls of chili. A single mom with 2 little girls settled into a booth, the kids giggling as they tore into cornbread. Even Sarah Johnson swung by, snapping pics for a follow-up piece, her notebook already smudged with sauce. Emma moved through it all, dishing out plates, cracking jokes, her chest buzzing with a joy she hadn't felt in years. Then came the moment that stopped her cold. She was hauling a tray of rolls from the oven, the heat blasting her face, when Alex rolled up beside her. His hands fidgeted, like he was working up to something, and she knelt down, setting the tray aside. What's up, Chef? Need more dough? He shook his head, his dark eyes locking onto hers, clear, steady, alive. His lips parted, hesitant, and then it came. A soft, shaky whisper that cut through the noise like a knife. Thank you, Emma. Her breath hitched, tears spilling over before she could stop them. She dropped to her knees, pulling him into a hug, his skinny arms wrapping tight around her neck. Oh God, Alex, she choked out, laughing through the sobs. You're gonna make me cry in front of everybody, you little punk. He clung to her, his hoodie damp with her tears, and the room faded. Just the 2 of them, flour-dusted and whole. David stepped over, kneeling beside them, his own eyes glassy. Hey, bud, he said, voice breaking as he rested a hand on Alex's shoulder. You're something else, you know that? Alex pulled back, looking between them, and smiled, full, real, a kid who'd found his place. Later, as the crowd thinned and the fairy lights flickered, Emma stood outside, the Chicago night crisp against her skin. The city stretched out, gritty, loud hers, and she breathed it in, the weight of everything settling into something good. Maria's kitchen glowed behind her, a beacon in the dark, and she murmured, worth every damn fight. David joined her, hands in his pockets. You did good, Emma, he said, quiet but sure. She nodded, tipping her head to the stars. We all did. Hey, folks, what's kindness and grit changed in your life? Share your stories in the comments. I want to hear everyone. And hit that subscribe button for more tales like Emma and Alex's. Thanks for sticking with us. This one's for you.